Hello, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. My name is Luis Galvez. I'm a marketing manager with Wolters Kluwer Tax Accounting, and I'd like to welcome you to our virtual tax call today on how to start and grow your tax business. We have lots of content to present. However, we are allowing a couple more minutes for attendees to join, get settled. So if you're already here, feel free to use the Q&A, the questions tab, to let us know where you're joining us from and any questions that you have regarding the topic. We'll be going through questions towards the end of the presentation, and then, of course, throughout, if the topic allows. And looking forward to hearing your thoughts, what questions you have, and where you're joining us from. Like I said, we'll give everybody a couple of minutes, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. All right, and thank you to those who have submitted your comments regarding where you're joining us from. We see that people are joining from all over the US, so definitely lots of interest in starting. And of course, if you already have a tax business, growing it, as you know, tax preparation is one of those businesses that are essentially recession proof. They're always going to be there, as we always have to pay taxes. So with that, I think we are ready to get started. Welcome once again to our virtual tax school webinar on how to start and grow your tax business, hosted by Wolters Kluwer Tax Accounting North America. My name is Luis Galvez. I'm a marketing manager, and I'd like to introduce you to Ryan Hobbs, our solution architect and product expert, who will be speaking on the topic today. Ryan, with lots of experience both as a tax professional yourself, and now, of course, now on our side of the industry, as a technology specialist. So welcome, Ryan, and welcome, everybody.
Absolutely, and thank you for the kind introduction, Luis. And as you can see by the slide on the screen, today the topic is going to be how to start and grow your tax business. Now, one thing that I will note is when I set up these presentations, I try to include some content for everybody, regardless of how far along you are in having a tax business, and whether you're just starting out or you've been doing it for many years. I always sprinkle in a little bit of content for everybody, but there's no way around it. Today, we're definitely going to be looking more at the beginning stages and how not only are the required steps that you need to follow with the IRS to start a business, but what are some ways you can grow your business as well, and how are you making sure that you're going to be IRS compliant? And before I really get into this presentation, I always like to give a brief background of myself, just so you know who is the man speaking on the screen. And like I said, my name is Ryan Hobbs, and I have I think I'm probably just at 10 years of tax experience. And it's what I have my background in. It's what I went to college for, my degrees in accounting. After I graduated, I moved up to Washington, D.C., and spent some time working for 2 different CPA firms. And I did a little bit of everything. I did some nonprofit work, I did audits, but the majority of the work I was doing was taxes, taxes, taxes. And at my current role at Wolters Kluwer, I'm a solution architect. It's a really fancy way of saying I'm a product specialist that, 1, knows our products, but 2, also has a tax background. So I've kind of fused both paths into a career here. And today, the items that we are going to be going over, our objectives today, are going to be what are the steps to starting a tax business. And I'll have this broken down between what's required, what I recommend you do, and then some optional steps based off your own personal situation, your business's own situation. We'll spend some time talking about pathway to licensure, the EA, the CPA. What are the pros of getting these licenses? How hard is it? How long is it going to take? We'll talk about how to safeguard taxpayer information. You know, I go to a lot of different trade shows for my role here at Wolters Kluwer. And this is a question that I bring up to a lot of people. I'm saying, well, what are you doing to protect your taxpayers' financial information? What guardrails do you have in place to make sure that it's safe? And not everybody is doing this. And it is required by the IRS to have a specific written plan in place on how you're going to safeguard this information. So we're going to take a look at what the IRS requires and what you can do to easily get this set up. Lastly, we'll be talking about the benefits of the virtual tax office that we do offer and how it's going to help you really in your journey from start to finish of starting a tax preparation company. And we'll also take a look at the tax software very briefly. At the end, I do hope to host maybe a 10-15 minute Q&A where if you are just getting started or you are looking to grow your business, what are some of my thoughts and suggestions based off the questions that you may have. So with all that being said, I do want to open this up to the first polling question. And we like to ask these polling questions just to get a feel for our audience, make sure that the content that we're making for these presentations is really suiting your needs. So my polling question to begin is going to be, how many tax seasons have you participated in? And you can see I have 4 options. We have 0, this will be my first tax season. You're really at the start phase, right? You're just starting your tax practice. Option 2, 1 to 2 years. Option 3, 3 to 5 years. And then finally, we have option 5, 5+ years. And this will help give me an idea of the kinds of people that are coming here and how to set up content for future demonstrations. I do hold these basically on a monthly basis, and the topics can really range depending on skill set and how advanced they can be is the best way to put it. And I'll give everybody just a little bit of time. Let's go ahead and open up this polling question, Luis, and
Ryan,
get some answers here.
I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties with the polling question. So if we can ask everybody to participate in the questions tab, that would be great. Just let us know. I see a few answers already there, 5 years, 3 years. So if we can.
Looks like we have 1, 5, 3, yeah. Yes. So it's looking like a pretty good mix. Not seeing any zeros. This will be my first tax season. Any zeros out there, just pop it into the questions tab. Okay, it looks like so we have a pretty varied group here. Looks like we're all kind of really in the grow phase, but we are going to spend some time looking at how to start a tax business. There's a 0, thank you. Okay, so let's go ahead then and move this to my next slide. And these are going to be the steps to starting. And like I said earlier, I have broken this down between required, recommended, and optional. We're going to talk a little bit about each one of these. Now, on the required, you can see there are 2 numbers that we need. We need a P10, we need an EFIN. In my personal experience, always take care of the EFIN first, and there's a reason for this. Getting your EFIN is going to give you the ability to electronically file your returns. And in today's day and age, in 2023, that is how the vast majority of tax returns are being submitted to the IRS. And the reason that I recommend doing this first is it can be difficult to get your EFIN. Even if the process goes very, very smoothly, you have all the information the IRS needs, which typically is, your personal information, what's your social security number, they may run a background check on you as well. Even if you have all of your information and it goes very smoothly, typical wait times is 45 days. And that's assuming that there are no problems. And if we look at our calendar, we're coming up on October. So we have about 95-ish days until the start of 2024. So if this is something that you have not started and you are serious about getting tax returns done next year, definitely recommend doing this as quickly as possible. I work with a lot of people. I work with a lot of accountants and tax preparers on a daily basis. And I would say getting the EFIN can be the #1 hurdle on a yearly basis to actually keeping a business running or getting a business off the ground. So do not wait. The IRS has pretty clear instructions on their website, but they may need to fingerprint you as well. I just went and got my EFIN again this year. I had to get fingerprinted. It was actually a rather smooth process too. They went and I was able to set it up through the IRS's website. I went to the place to get my fingerprints, and they knew exactly where it was going. Didn't have to tell them it was for the IRS. Didn't have to tell them it was for my EFIN. It's a pretty slick process, but it does take some time to get going. So if you don't have your EFIN, always recommend doing this before anything else on this list. Now, when it comes to the other item that's required, we do need a P10. This is going to be your prepared tax identification number. This is much easier to get. There is a very small fee. I think last year it was $15. May have gone up a little bit, but it's typically not too much money. And this can be a same-day turnaround. Basically, once you go and fill out all of your information, you pay the small fee that the IRS requires. I think you get in about 2 hours. I think that's how long it took last year. So it should be a quicker turnaround. So if you do procrastinate, that is the item I would procrastinate on, is you can typically get that much, much quicker. Now, moving down the list, let's talk about the recommended items. And the first item there is going to be tax software. I really wanted to put this in required. But it's technically not, right? You can get through a tax return without having tax preparation software. And actually, the first tax return I ever did after graduating at college, I did without tax preparation software. I had a friend, she needed some help with their tax return. I was an accountant. I said, I can absolutely help you. This will be easy peasy, and I will get this return done. So I go over there. She starts giving me her financial information, and I'm walking in thinking, okay, this is going to be an easier return. We're both, 24, 25. We're just going to have basically probably a W-2, maybe something small on the other hand. And it should be quick to get done. I don't need tax software. And so I go over there, and yes, there's a W-2. She was the teacher. And as I'm going through her other financial information, I'm saying, okay, there's some 1099 interest forms, 1099 dividend, ooh, a brokerage statement. Good for you, getting ready for retirement at a young age. And then as I go through, I see there's a K1. And I know I'm in a bit of trouble. This is going to be a much, much, much more difficult task than I originally had thought it was going to be. And I sat there and I struggled, and I did this tax return by hand, and I had my calculator, had the pencil behind my ear, and it ended up taking multiple days to do by hand. It took forever. It was a very time-intensive process. And I told myself right then and there, I will do more tax returns, but I will never, ever, ever do it without having a reliable tax software. So I'm going to leave it at recommended. I guess for me personally, it's required. I will never do another return by hand. But the tax software is really meant to do a lot of the work for us. If we enter in W-2 information, it's going to calculate the returns based off AGI. And having a reliable tax software really will speed up the whole process. It'll allow you to not only do more returns, as you're going to get through them exponentially quicker, but it's also going to have a certain degree of reliability, that when you're doing a return, you're going to know that there aren't mathematical errors, there aren't mathematical problems that are occurring. So always recommend tax software. That's probably the most important item on this list, so we can get through the returns quickly. But we also have some other items on here. Always recommend a website, especially for the grow phase. Once you have the items that you need to actually do the tax returns, well, you really have to go out there and market yourself. And eventually, what many of you have probably seen, and what I've seen, is there's a snowball effect, that once you get to a certain level, word of mouth advertising is really going to grow your business to a really, really solid state. But the problem is how do you start? How do you get those first few clients that they can tell their friends that you've done a good job on their tax returns? Well, part of what you can do is have a website. And a website, it doesn't need to be much, right? You just need something that looks professional, maybe have a client portal embedded into it, maybe a way to accept payments, but really more than anything, just a professional place to go. So when they Google you, which they usually will, they can see your website, they can see that you're legit, and give them more than anything, just peace of mind that there is a qualified person that has put time and effort into this, that is going to be preparing their tax returns. And really, you can piggyback this with a few other ways to grow. Business cards, always important to have. When I was first growing and first starting to really try to drive clients, I would go to grocery stores, I would put flyers on the bulletin boards that they had there. I would go to Rotary Club meetings, and just word of mouth, marketing, just trying to get my name out to as many people. Check out my website. My rates are right on there. And eventually it got to a point where I didn't have to do that anymore. Eventually it got to a point that I got past the starting phase. I got past that initial hurdle, And the word of mouth is really, really what drove it. As they told their friends, it became to a point where I could be more selective with who I took on. If I knew someone was looked at their prior year tax returns and the information that they gave me, you can just see it's a mess. I mean, eventually it'll grow to a point where you don't have to take on every client that you have. You can be choosy. You can pick the clients that you think are going to give you the least headache, right? We work in a field where there's always going to be a headache. There's always going to be a struggle at some point dealing with clients. But if you can get to a point where you can kind of sidestep some bombs that you see coming, some landmines you see coming, very, very good place for your business to be in. Last two items here on the recommended list are really going to go hand in hand. I have a business license. I also have S Corp status. You do not have to be a business in order to do tax returns. You can be a Schedule C sole proprietor. That is definitely an option to you, but you have to think about the field that we work in. Typically, we are working with lots of different clients, and we're working with their sensitive financial information. Whenever you're working in that field and reporting directly these results to the government, to the IRS, there's always a degree of risk involved, right? There's a degree of risk when it comes to error. There's a degree of risk when it comes to safeguarding clients' information. And having that wall between your personal assets and your business assets, I always recommend is a very good thing to do. S Corp status can really protect your personal assets, even if you were, God forbid, sued or something happened, your business lost money. Very, very smart to go and have that clear separation. I'm not going to dive into great detail with S Corp status. What I will say is that it's really not that hard to get. There's a form, it's the 2553 that you have to fill out. Typically takes the IRS about 2 months to get back to you. If you're a new business, you do need to do it basically immediately once you start that business. If you have been rolling and you have been going for a few years and you want to switch to that S Corp status, typically you can do that at the beginning of the year. So each time a new year rolls around, at the beginning, you'll have an option to change your election. I will be hosting a webinar in December on income splitting, which will dive very, very deeply into S Corp status. And you will have some time, as if you already are going and you are interested in switching. That'll be in December. You can make the switch once I go over everything that January. Now, the last three options on this list is we have a portal, a logo, and a business checking account. I have all three of these as optional. It's really up to your own specific situation if you're going to need these. I'm going to go ahead and start off with the portal. I think most people know what a portal is, but for those that don't, it is a way to send documents back and forth with your clients. You can upload documents for them, like completed tax returns, maybe you have an engagement letter. They can upload their financial information to you. And what I always kind of recommend with people with the portal is that if you think you can get your clients to use it, use a portal. It is going to make your life easier. It's going to remove the need for people to be coming into your office and dropping a big shoebox full of documents, which you then have to sort, sift through, organize. Probably going to have to scan it in eventually anyways. So if you can get your clients to use the portal, you think you can get a majority of your clients to use the portal, definitely recommend it. Can really make their lives easier too. That's how I always kind of pitch the portal idea to my clients is, well, if you ever need to see your tax return, it's going to be right in the portal. You can just go, you can log in, you can view it, you can see your financial information. You don't even have to call me unless you really think it's something critical that I need to help you with. And if you can kind of frame it in that way that you're doing them a favor, a lot of times it can grease the wheels to getting them to use the portal. I know some people here that are on this presentation today, they're just saying, no way, my clients would never, ever, ever use a portal. And I get it, I hear you. If you do have those clients, you probably are gonna be stuck doing it the old fashioned way by getting that big shoebox. But if you think you can get them to use a portal, absolutely do it. Logo, just a way to look professional. Really, you can put this on your website. If you go with the Wolters Kluwer portal, you can also have your logo at the main login screen, just looking very professional, letting your clients know that they're logging in at the correct place when they do have to drop off that sensitive financial information. And then a business checking account. I had a friend, Danny the plumber, he owned a plumbing business, and there was no separation between his personal assets and his business assets. He just had one bank account. It was used for everything. And trying to sift through that and sort out what was a business expense, what was a personal expense at the end of the year when doing his taxes, it was possible. I'm not going to say it was impossible, but it was time intensive. It was a ton of work, and I'm sure things were missed. I'm sure there were business expenses that were missed. Always recommend having that degree of separation. Have a business checking account if you can get one that has some rewards attached to it as well. You may be able to get a little bit of free money and then some rewards on the back end, but always having the ability to say, okay, this is a business expense, this is a personal expense, going to make sure that you personally are maximizing your deductions for your business when it's time for you to file. Moving on to our next polling question. I want to see what professional designations do you currently hold? And the IRS has really 3, possibly 4, depending on how you view it, designations that you can get to help assist with tax preparing. We have the AFSP, the Annual Filing Season Program, Enrolled Agent, Certified Public Accountant. Then I have one. If you don't have any designations, feel free to just say, I'm just getting started. And then I guess I could have included a 5th option. If you are an attorney, feel free to go ahead and just type that into the chat. That's not my personal expertise as an attorney, so I know a little bit less than the other options, so I've left it off the list, but I know that you can help with taxes if you are an attorney. Looks like our polling question is working now, so you all should be getting prompted to go ahead and actually submit your response, and I'll give you maybe 30 seconds, 30 to 45 seconds here, and we'll go ahead and go over the results.
That's right, Ryan. And we did have, in addition to the polling questions, we did have a few people submit their questions in the Q&A, so we can look at that as well. But yeah, glad to have the polling questions back up and running.
Fantastic. And do we have the results?
Yes, we do. Let me give everybody 6 more seconds to complete a whole minute. And I'm gonna close the poll and share the results out for you and for everybody to see. And Ryan, it looks like 32% of our attendees today are just getting started, which is great. With 28% being CPAs, 24% participating in the annual filing season program, and then 16% as enrolled agents. So definitely a good mix and a big percentage of those who are looking to get started, which it's amazing news. There's enough taxpayers out there for everybody. So come along.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm happy to hear that a lot of people are just getting started, as I think this will be very helpful to go over some of your different options that are available to you. And I'm going to go ahead and throw it to the next slide here. But before I really start going into this, one thing with designations, one thing with having the alphabet after your name, in my professional experience with the people that I've worked with, it doesn't always talk a lot to competency. And for example, when it comes to tax returns, I know plenty of people with no designation whatsoever that are amazing at getting a tax return done. Even better than some of the CPAs I know, even maybe better than me personally. They are phenomenal people. And so, getting the AFSP or the CPA or the EA, maybe it's not the right thing for you. And I don't want to make it sound like it's the end all be all. But what I will say is having at least one of these items is going to make you look very professional. It's going to add a lot of weight that when you say you're an expert, you're going to have a professional designation that you can point to where maybe you are great at doing taxes, but you're trying to bring on a client and they don't know you. They've never seen you do a tax return. Well, these are really ways to show your clients that, I'm running this business and I'm very, very serious about it. And for the AFSP, the Annual Filing Season Program, this is something where if you are in that category of just getting started, I would start your search here. And this is going to be a designation that is obtained on a yearly basis. It's done through the IRS. And it's going to allow you to do a couple things. One is it's going to allow you to represent clients who you did their return. And if they ever are audited, they have to talk to revenue agents or the IRS, you can be their voice for them. Now, one of the limitations is you have to have done the tax return. You're going to see with some of the other designations, the EA and the CPA, you're not going to have done that tax return. So the AFSP, You have to have done the tax return, but you can represent your clients. And the IRS is also going to place you on their recommended tax preparers list, where if you do have potential business that wants to check you out, you can go ahead and direct them right to the IRS website and say, here I am, they've listed me. I am a recommended tax preparer. And why I like this designation so much, it's easy to obtain. It takes 18 hours, 18 CPE hours. And these hours can be kind of picked and pulled and chosen to really, so you can get what you want out of those hours. It can be heavily tax focused. It could be data security focused. You have a lot of options available to you. So if you are just getting started, this is what I would start to do. I would start with the AFSP, get some letters after your name, and get on the IRS recommended tax preparers list. Moving to the next designation after this, we're going to talk about enrolled agent. Enrolled agent is going to be a tax expert that is allowed to represent clients in front of the IRS, even if they did not do that return. Whether they did the return, they didn't do the return, they're going to have the ability to speak for their clients in front of the IRS. And the designation is going to also allow you to help with audits and appeal IRS decisions. And then I have an error here, capped at 1,500. This should have been deleted. This is an error. I apologize for that. But the next row down, it's going to consist of a 3-part exam. And the time intensity that's going to be required for this is definitely going to be more than AFSP. This is going to be something that you're going to have to plan out ahead of time. You're going to have to designate some time, probably not during busy season, probably during the slower months in order to get this done. But you can see this is a level up from the AFSP. And this is something that, you know, once you have it, you don't have to retake the test on a yearly basis. You will have to keep up with some CPE requirements just to keep that license active, but it's not going to be something that you have to take the test one time. And that's going to be very similar to the final designation here, certified public accountants. This is going to be, I guess, according to the IRS, the highest level of designation, and it's going to allow you to represent anyone in front of the IRS. And there's really a lot of overlap with the EA and the CPA. The CPA, though, is going to allow you to do a few things and pursue a few activities outside of just working with taxes. If you need to become a forensic accountant, you know, the CPA is a requirement that you would need in order to do this. This is going to be a 5-part exam. It can be very, very difficult. I'm not going to lie. I've taken the CPA exam. I believe it's broken down between just business, regular business items, broken down to financial information FAR. You're going to have audit and then the regulatory statutes. And there's also a 5th part. It's the ethics part. It's definitely the only easy part. But if you're serious about becoming a CPA, you're absolutely going to have to go ahead and designate a large chunk of time in order for you to go ahead and get this exam. There are some programs out there that can assist you with it. I highly recommend it, as trying to go it alone would be very, very difficult. But these are really the 3 different programs that you have that can be used to add a lot of weight to when you say, I'm a professional. This is what I do. I know what I'm doing. And really any one of these 3 is going to add a lot of weight to you. It's going to make you look very professional. Definitely will help bring on new business. Moving forward, I want to go ahead and open up the next polling question. And we're going to pivot away from professional designations. And we're going to talk about the written data security plan. And we're going to see, do you all have a written plan detailing how you keep your client's information secure? And we have yes, we have no, we have not sure. Maybe you're just getting started. You don't even know what this is. Well, don't worry about it. We're going to talk about this plan. We're going to talk about some ways that you can make your life very easy in order to get this done.
That's right, Ryan, and we'll give everybody 30, 45 more seconds to respond. So far, we have actually a tie between yes and no, 43%, 14% not sure, and that's okay. I would assume the not sure are part of the 30% or so that are brand new to the tax preparation industry. So that is definitely okay. And then I do know that these responses, if you're a tax professional with your tax office, we're not submitting any of this information to the IRS. So if you don't have a written security plan, that is okay as well, as far as this webinar is concerned. So no shame on that. But definitely, I know, Ryan, you'll talk to us a little bit more about the need for a written data security plan as it relates to the tax profession, and then some
Yes.
points there to keep in mind. But we'll go ahead and close the poll. We'll share it out with everybody to see. We had 35% answer yes, 50% no, and 15% not sure.
And so if you are someone who did not check yes to this, don't worry. I go to lots of trade shows, and this is a common question that I ask to people at those trade shows, and it's a common question that you get a lot of no's to. They don't have a plan. But it is technically required by the IRS to have a written plan, and there are some reasons why the IRS is so insistent that you have this. And as soon as you become a tax preparer, the government is going to consider you a financial institution. And when you really break it down and think about it, you're going to be responsible for a lot more information than even a bank. What information does your bank have on you? Well, they know your name, they know your social security number, but do they know all your dependents information? Do they know every single rental property you own or every side business you own? It's really dependent on how much banking you do with them. But when you're doing a tax return, you're really taking a look into each and every person's complete financial situation. The IRS is very stringent when it comes to their reporting, where they really want to know everything. Even if you don't owe taxes, they want to know every bit of financial information about you. And as a tax preparer or CPA or EA, whatever the situation may be, they're going to be giving you all of their information. And this is really the reason why the IRS wants to make sure that there are some measures kept in place in order to make sure that everyone has a plan that's handling this information to make sure that it's in a safe place. And this is really detailed in something called the IRS Circular 230, which will really use the coding of the IRS to say specifically what you need to do. But what I can tell you is the basic steps to take is for any physical documents, meaning documents that you've printed out. It's not online, it's not on your computer. Make sure that those are under lock and key. Make sure that you have a place that when you're done working with an item, you are controlling the access to that information. Most people use a file cabinet. They just lock that file cabinet for their clients when they're not, pulling specific information for them when they're actually doing their return. Typically, that is more than enough to keep the physical side of these documents under IRS Circular 230. Now, when it comes to the virtual protection, this is where it gets a little bit more complicated, right? There may be emails with financial information floating around. You have to make sure that your systems are safe and secure from being hacked. And I'm going to spend a little bit more time talking about the virtual side of this. But the main things to note is make sure that everything is encrypted. If you're using an online tax software, make sure that it is encrypting data back and forth as you're sending it. We offer many solutions that do this. If you are using a portal, for example, make sure the portal is also encrypted. So when you're sending information back and forth, it's not easily hacked by nefarious characters. And I want to go ahead and pivot, and I want to talk about our virtual tax office solution. And the reason that I want to go ahead and do this is that you can see on this screen, we offer a lot of different solutions for the whole process, from gathering documents to e-signing returns to completing returns. And one of the things that we've done is when it comes to that data security plan, we've made sure to make all of these different options compliant with the IRS, where everything is going to be encrypted, everything is going to be secure. And when it comes to having that written data security plan, make sure you're breaking it down between the physical and the virtual part. But it doesn't have to be in depth. It doesn't need to be a 20-page document. As part of, now I wouldn't say it should be the only thing you say, but as part of what your plan is, you can say, I'm using all encrypted solutions when sending information back and forth across the web. And that's a very strong argument. It's impossible to stop all instances of fraud and all instances of theft. But what you really want to be doing is removing the liability on your end, as much liability as possible, at least, where if something ever does happen, you're going to be able to point and say, I've done X, Y, and Z, and past this, I've done my due diligence. I went that extra step. And sometimes just acts of God, as they call them, do happen. And when it comes to our total tax office solution, just to briefly go through this slide, the client portal, I've touched upon this. This is one of the optional steps I had to starting a tax business. Well, just make sure it's encrypted. Make sure that you're using a portal that's going to keep that information safe, and it should make your life a bit easier. I'm not going to go ahead and go over every single advantage of using a client portal again, as we've kind of already touched upon it, but I do want to talk about the steps after the client portal. The client portal is really meant to send data back and forth, but what are you all doing to use for your document storage? Are you keeping paper copies in a vault somewhere, in a filing cabinet somewhere? If you have digital copies, is it just on your hard drive? If it's on your hard drive, you have to ask your question, well, I'm connected to the internet all the time. What am I doing to protect these? Am I using a VPN? Am I using something like ShareSafe that's going to keep this information safe? One of the nice things about our TaxWise solution is that there is actually an online vault built into the tax preparation software, where all of your documents, not only for that client, are going to be stored. So you can upload their W-2s, you can upload their 1099s, even if it's not something that's specific to the tax return. Maybe you just have some client notes that you want to be cognizant of, you want to remember as you move forward. You can store those items within that direct return, and you can recall them. And one of the nice things about TaxWise Online is all the data that's sent back and forth is encrypted. This would be a secure way to store that information. And then getting to e-signatures. E-signatures is another place where when I'm at these trade shows, that I don't see everybody being IRS compliant. And what the IRS requires, I guess we'll start with what the IRS requires, is if you're going to have an electronic signature, they want you to have a knowledge-based authentication program verifying that the correct person is actually signing off on this tax return. And what I see a lot of people doing is maybe they're using a client portal and they're just popping a copy of the 8879, maybe they're popping a copy of the tax return into that client portal. And even though your clients have to log in to your portal, technically not IRS compliant because they're not answering any qualifying questions. And what these KBA questions look like, if you ever applied for like a loan or a credit card, they typically ask these, where it'll be like, here are 5 addresses. Which one of these did you actually live on? Here are 5 employers. Which one of these did you work for? And the IRS wants you to answer 3 of those questions correctly, and then have the ability to look at your tax return, review your tax return, and sign off. Within TaxWise Online, you can sign that return you can send that return through e-signature directly from the tax software. We're going to use a SureSign to make sure that we're going to use the SureSign, who's going to automatically use those knowledge-based authentication questions. What the process really looks like is you mark the return for e-signature. You probably have to put in their email address. They will be notified. They'll click a link, they'll answer their questions, then they can review their return. They'll sign off on it digitally, and the 8879 is going to automatically populate into the tax software. Last item to go over is TaxWise Mobile. We do have a mobile option available to tax preparers, and the data that you receive, and let me go ahead and bring this up. The data, what this is, let me first go ahead and explain what this is. This is a way to, 1, market yourself to your clients, and 2, it's a way for them to fill out critical parts of the tax return where you're not going to have to do the data entry. And let me go and bring up what the Tax Mobile is. And this is an actual client that I work with. They're called iTax Mobile. I believe they're based out of Georgia. And this is their tax refund calculator that we've provided for them, but you can see they've branded it to their firm-specific colors, their firm-specific logo, etc. And what this is, it's a way to give your clients an estimated refund. And how that they get this estimated refund is they're going to answer some qualifying questions about themselves. You can see it's going to say, okay, what state did you live in? Is that the only state you lived in? What's your filing status? Were you single? Were you married? We'll go ahead and say they were single. Are you a widower? We'll say no. What's your age? We'll go ahead and pop in my age, 35. Can you claim dependents? And you can see that it's going through really some of the basic most basic information of the tax return. And once you kind of get the basics, then it's going to say, okay, what kind of income did you have? Well, I'll say I had a job. I'll just guesstimate. I'll say I made $40,000, have a little bit of withholding. We'll say that's my only W-2 here. And you can see now it's going to deductions. And what this is going to be is once you actually get to the results, you can see it takes just a little bit of time. Going to give them an estimated refund. Unfortunately, I didn't make the withholdings high enough. Let's go ahead and change the withholding so we can see a refund. Say I had $10,000 in withholdings and go back. You can see it's going to pop out an estimated refund. And this is meant to be used to give them an incentive to use you as their tax preparer. You've gone ahead and provided them with the tool to give them a refund estimate. And then if they go with you, you're probably going to get within this range. You can see it clearly states this is just an estimate. We can't guarantee this, but it is pretty accurate based off how they input their financial information. And this can be one of those tools that you embed into your website in order to start and grow your tax business. Any information they share will be encrypted. This specific section kind of goes more with the start and the grow part of this presentation more than the data security. And one of the nice things is all this information that they entered, when they entered in where they'd lived, what was their income, what was their expenses, can actually have this automatically flow through into the tax return. So you don't have to repeat the data once you bring them on as a client, where large portions of this tax return are already going to be completed for you. So with all that being said, let me go ahead and jump back into my PowerPoint. And we're right at about 12:45, which is exactly where I wanted to be. I want to go ahead and open this up to more of a Q&A and see if you all have any questions about starting and growing your tax business. When preparing this presentation, I do my best to make it all encompassing and give you knowledge, some general knowledge about the general steps, the general process. But if you're actually in the weeds and just getting started, maybe you have some specific bottlenecks, some specific hurdles that you're trying to get through, I'd really like to spend some time and feel free to ask those questions. And let's see if I can maybe assist you on some of those different items that you may be going through. And let's see, it looks like we have a few questions in the tab, but it looks like these are mostly about the different licenses that you can get. Looks like we have a lot of people that are working on their EA. I definitely recommend that. It's a good logical next step after getting your AFSP. Will there be a chance? I have someone asking, will there be a chance to download any of the slides from this presentation, or are they PowerPoint formatted? Luis, do you know if there's an option to send out these slides to the attendees? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, we can definitely send the PowerPoint. So if you're interested in receiving a PDF with the content, please notate it in the questions tab. But then everybody will receive a link to watch the recording again, so you can take your own notes and replay the information as always. Yep.
And then we have a good comment here. You should mention various tax organizations offer AFSP training and exam, and that is absolutely right. There are places, and a quick Google search will bring up many of them, most of them, where if you do want to take the exam that's required, and you do need to get those 18 hours of CPE, just type it into Google, and there are many different places that can assist you. Typically, there will be a small fee attached to it, but it's usually a rather small fee, where even if you get one additional tax client, it's going to pay for itself. So if you get two, you're probably making a profit just based off that alone. Very, very good comment, very good point. Going through here.
Ryan, a question I saw earlier, somebody was asking about the primary difference between a desktop and an online solution. There's a lot of talk about online, and I guess part of the confusion is, virtual tax office, online, cloud, all of those terms, they are speaking really about the same thing, aren't they?
Yes, absolutely. And everyone's situation is different, whether you think having a desktop version of a software or an online version of a software would be better for you. And I can tell you from my personal experience, I started doing this 10 years ago. There weren't really any cloud-based options. And I had grown very accustomed that I had my laptop and it had my tax returns, and that's just the way I did things. If I didn't have my laptop, well, then I couldn't do my tax returns, but that's just how I was accustomed to. It didn't feel off. But when I made the switch and I actually went to an online version, especially something like TaxWise where you can log in from your web browser, having that ability to have my returns anywhere. As long as I had an internet connection, I could access my returns, I can access my documents, I can communicate with my clients through the tax software even. And it's a very liberating feeling because you don't feel so tied to having one geographic location where you're going to be doing these tax returns. Even if you have a crazy week or a crazy month and you have to travel and you're constantly on the run, maybe you've forgotten a device where you typically keep your tax returns, it really opens up a lot of doors to where it's going to make it very easy for you to work on returns when you want to work on returns. And if you do have a desktop version, it's really up to you to encrypt your personal device to make sure that it is safe from hackers through VPNs and other processes where, online tools like TaxWise, we're going to make sure that those are going to be IRS Circular 230 compliant. We're going to make sure that those safeguards are already in place, where it's really going to become a lot more of an afterthought. You should always ask yourself, am I doing the right thing? Am I keeping information safe? But we're going to kind of set that framework for you where, we are going to use encryption. We are going to make sure that these are going to safe places. We are going to have geographic backups of the data that you submit online. And it can take a lot of the questioning, it can take a lot of the planning, really minimize it on your end. It looks like we have some further items here on the questions tab. A lot of people want the PowerPoints. We can definitely make sure that we get those out to you. But I'm not seeing too many other questions about starting or growing your tax business. Luis, is there anything else? Did I miss any questions from earlier on when I was going through the presentation portion of this?
I think you did, Ryan. I think you covered pretty much all of them. So if you're ready for the last polling question, I'm happy to launch it.
Sure, absolutely. I think we are. Let me go ahead and go back here to the last polling question. And, today we just did an overview, really. We spent most of the time on our topics, how to start and grow your tax business. Spent a little bit of time talking about TaxWise Online. But if you are looking for a tax software, or you are looking maybe to switch from your current tax software, we just want to know, would you like a more in-depth product demo and further details about TaxWise Online? And the reason that we like to ask this is, if you do have specific functions and features that you need out of a tax software, or you just need a general overview, maybe you just need to know what tax softwares do, how do they make my life easier? People like myself or other people in my roles, we will host either online webinars or one-on-one demonstrations where we can go through the specific items that you need to see and really make sure that we're alleviating any of the concerns that you may have before making such a big switch. Now, what tax software you use is going to be one of the most important decisions you make on a yearly basis. You want a software that's all-encompassing. You want a software that's going to get the job done, and you want a software that's going to keep data safe. And so we like to have these demonstrations. If this is something that you would be interested in, please mark yes to the question, and we'll have someone reach out to you in the very near future.
That's right, Ryan, and happy to see that the majority of attendees today are interested in learning more about TaxWise Online. Typically what happens is, as you mentioned, somebody who is what we call a solutions consultant that works within the territory, the demographic territory, where the attendee is located. So if you're in Florida, for example, we have solutions consultants that work within the Florida territory, so they know the challenges and the opportunities for that specific state or territory where you're in. So not only is it a consultation about the product itself or the tax software, but also on how to grow and start your business within that's the state that you're in or within the demographics that you're in. So it's usually a consultation call, and it's happy to share what we have learned from hundreds of conversations from tax professionals within each territory. So it's definitely a great opportunity for you if you're starting a business, and definitely if you'd like to grow it.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more.
Okay, I think we have everybody voted on that, Ryan. With that, I think we're ready to close things up. So thank you everybody for attending our presentation today on how to start and grow your tax preparation business. Thank you to Ryan, our solution architect and product expert, tax industry expert, really, from both sides of the industry as a tax professional and as a technology professional and expert. So thank you for the content. Thank you all for attending, and looking forward to seeing you during the next presentation. And of course, if you do get to talk to one of our solutions consultants, take advantage of that consultation call, as it will definitely share what we talked to and hear from hundreds of tax professionals out there. Have a good day, everybody, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.